thanks ever so much, ladies and gentlemen, for coming. Obviously, the weather's not been great at all, and there's been a lot of, people that have come from far and wide. You've come from Newmarket. Yeah. So yeah, no, it's great to see you. You know what the seminar's about. I've mentioned a lot of stuff already, but I'm gonna have to repeat myself for the video. This is obviously about core strengthening. It's not necessarily just for the fitness course, which obviously we've worked out is roughly 50 and 50. The guys and the girls that need it, and obviously the guys that have got licenses don't need it. But it's about obviously being stronger in the saddle. Hence, we're going to do a lot of kind of practical demonstrations on the Equicizer. But also, if we can just get anything from 1 to 5%, if not more, of improvement in this one kind of subject, we're doing really well. Because obviously going on further afield, we're going to do other seminars on diet, on fitness, etc., on the mindset. And if we can get 5% on each of those subjects, you're doing really well, aren't you? So take notes, ask questions. There's no silly question rather than one that you don't ask. And that's about it. Right, introduce Jen Hewitt, the doctor, PhD. I've not got any notes written down, and Jen said to me, do not say to me, tell my kind of story. But I'm not going to hand it right over to you like that. But you can obviously back me up because I don't know the whole information. But Jen's been at the top of the game. She's looked after 5 motor driving championship
I've got,
drivers.
4 or 5 motorsport world championship drivers that I've trained.
And what have you done? You've cycling,
I was top 6 in the country, 3rd at British Champs in long distance triathlon. So I've done a fair bit of endurance and core work alongside it myself, which has kept me a bit busy.
So it's just a pleasure and an honour to have her here. Do you know what I mean? Hopefully we can kind of have her again and again and again going forward if we have the right kind of attendances. And yeah, kind of hand it over to you. If I stick up on the on the TV, what you want me to...
I wanted to start today actually with a video. So I get Nick to play that one.
No, we went that way, didn't we?
Yeah.
Right, play. It's not playing. It's typical. Played earlier. Try and go closer to the TV. There we go.
Yeah, that was me.
It's just buffer zoning, is it? Buffering?
I have no idea.
Doesn't matter. Let's just have a look. I'll take it over here.
Have a little play with that. Basically, this was Kennedy's ride from last week, which just happened to fit in beautifully with this talk, because you saw him coming over a fence. There we go. Was that?
No, it's my finger.
No.
I'm trying to get it revved up a little bit. It's not right.
But this illustrated the point of keeping your balance and optimising your fitness in sort of muscular planes beyond what jockey fitness test teaches.
Yeah.
And the strength that you need to get back on that horse, how if your muscles are already strong and they have that conditioning.
You've all seen this, yeah? Yeah.
That having those muscles really, really strong enable you to reseat your position, get back in the race, and hopefully have a performance like that and get yourself out of trouble. So, really strengthening yourself, having the flexibility within the muscle, because the angle of his leg as he had to hoist that back over, if his muscles were tight on that, that's just straight away going to be a tear, and he is not going to be able to carry on riding like that. So if you're strong, you're long, and you're conditioned, you'll be able to adapt to that kind of situation much better.
Which is kind of unique, but still, that's just a
great
example.
It was a brilliant example. It couldn't have come better last week, having that up there for this talk.
And it's not going to play, but anyway, you've seen it frame by frame. Right, PDF up.
Yep. Okay, so here we go. So I wanted to start today with a little bit of true or false. So if I can get everybody standing up. Okay, if you think something is true, I want you to stay standing. If you think it's false, I want you to sit back down. So the first question is, do your leg muscles affect the position of your hips? So if those leg muscles are tight, will it affect your pelvis? If you think it's true, keep standing. If you think it's false, sit back down. Okay, so we've got 2 on false. All right, and back up again. Okay, true or false? Your abdominal muscles and your glutes, your butt, provide your spine with stability. True or false? So true, stay standing, false, sit down. So do we think our abdominal muscles and our glutes give our spine stability? All think it's true? Okay. And that's the last question on this. Training that prevents muscle imbalances will build a stronger jockey. True or false? And we're all standing. Good. That is a great start. Fantastic. Okay, so I've got a couple of converts on the leg muscles. They were all true. All true. All right, how I want to do today. So I want a little bit of functional anatomy first, so you really understand where the muscle originates from, where it inserts to, and what that muscle action does. So we're going to look at the major muscle groups for jockey fitness and also how racing specifically affects your posture. Then I want to go on and have a look at what the jockey fitness test actually targets, what kind of strength the muscle groups, and how to train for those exercises and then progress that into your riding. And thirdly, we're just going to look at the limitations to that and give you some training to support and build jockey fitness. So our first slide is functional anatomy, which looks like a school textbook. So we're going to start with the hip flexors. So there's 9 hip flexors, and we're just going to look at 2 of them in this. But the first one, the major one, is called psoas major. Has anyone heard of that one before? No? Okay, that's a really big chunky hip flexor because it originates in our back, starts at T12, which is basically the base of our thoracic spine, and it attaches to all of the lumbar vertebrae, and then from there it attaches through to the top of the head of the femur, which means it's going to flex our hip. So it's going to allow us to do that. So we've got a massive muscle coming through there that allows us to flex. And if I hold that position there, if I do that on both sides, what position's that? Riding position. So we've got a massive amount of hip flexion coming from that psoas major when we ride. Okay, so its function is to stabilise our spine because it's attaching to all of those vertebrae. So it's going to help us with postural stability. Okay, and what happens, bear in mind where it's attaching to on the back, is if it's contracted all the time from riding because I'm pulling up and using it, what's going to happen to those muscles or those discs on my lower back if I'm in that all the time? Yeah, because it's pulling on them. So does anyone here ever feel any kind of lower back pain? Yeah. Okay, good. So we're beginning to understand what riding position and what we're going to need to look at. So if that's tight and it's pulling on these discs here, okay, let's think about the angle of the pelvis. All right, it's attaching onto the top of the femur, it's originating there, and it's tightening. What's that doing to my pelvis? It's making it move forwards. Yeah, so have you ever heard the expression duck butt before? No? Right, well we have heard it now. Okay, so an anterior to pelvic tilt, forward tilt the pelvis, and tight hip flexors make us stick our butt out, so it makes us look like a duck. All right, and it's compressing through here. So what we need to do to get back to neutral, what we're going to need to do to the pelvis, get it to, yeah, so we're going to get it to need to come or go back into a posterior, a backward tilt. So I want you all to basically find a bit of space. Let's have a look at stretching that through. And we're going to take up just a basic lunge. So we're going to start it with a knee on the floor. I'm really fussy on core stability work about my everything in line and 90-degree angles. So I want to see this foot.
You want to come over here, Emma?
Yeah, just obviously anywhere. I want you to get in at 90 from the foot to the knee. This one out behind. So I'm long through that hip flexor.
We won't have 2 small different groups.
And I gently want you to just press and roll 2% into that backward tilt of the pelvis, and then stretch up that arm there and lift up. And if you gently press 2% straight down the knee that's on the floor, can you feel that stretching up through here? So watch your pelvis angle. Yeah, there you go. Because if we're stretching out here, we're not getting into the hip. Keep it in line. Okay, really reach up. Everyone feel it? Okay, arm straight above your head. Look forward, yeah. There we go. Okay, and just try and gently roll that pelvis back into a posterior tilt. Yep, stretch through the gap. Okay, and then I'm just going to get you to push up, so we're getting a bit of strength work, because that means we're going to have to fire that glute. We push up on there. Okay, we need to, yeah, so we're going to need to build up some glutes. So I'm going to get you to bring that leg further forward. Yep.
Bring that one in one. Yeah, your feet are not wide enough.
Out that way. Yep, out a little bit more. Yeah. So we've increased the stretch on the hip flexor because that knee is pulling gravity and going down. We're reaching up to increase the stretch, and we're sticking a nice bit of stability and strength work in and making that glute fire by keeping it stable. Who's finding that hard? Yeah, all right, and come out of it. Okay, so already there, we had a casualty. We had a casualty.
You're right,
all right, so we found something we need to work on already, which is stretching out the hip flexors. And we've also found that our glute on the other side, when we challenge it with gravity of having to support your own body weight, doesn't have enough strength. So we need to look at strengthening those glutes. Okay, all right, we can sit down until the next one. So how can you prevent tight hip flexors? We've got the stretch. We need to teach them to return to a longer position. When we're riding all the time and we're sitting, say sitting at the moment, we're contracting and teaching those hip flexors to maintain a shortened position. So we need to teach them to lengthen, and we need to teach them to lengthen when we do other activity. So that stretch there, that really lovely lunge stretch which is there, is so important to keeping your hips long. The other bit we need to do is we need to strengthen, if you like, the opposing muscle group or the opposite muscle group. So your antagonist on your hip flexor are your glutes. Massively powerful backside muscle that I think get majorly underestimated in people's training. It's literally your powerhouse. So you've got to get a strong butt to be able to hold and compensate and pull that pelvis back round and readjust the hip flexor balance. So the second one to hip flexors are hamstrings. Back of the leg, back of the thigh. We've got 3 hamstrings. Got biceps femoris, semitendinosus, and semimembranosus. Okay, this is going to be another standing one, okay, probably with a bit of giggling, because I'm going to get you to find the origin of this one, which inserts, okay, sacrum, coccyx right there, and there is a little knobbly round bit just right into basically my gluteal fold, which I'm going to get everybody to find on themselves, which is where your hamstring originates from, okay? There's always one, isn't there? Look at the diagram. This is why we have pictures. Okay, so standing up again, I want you to find the base of your spine, which is your coccyx, and you can look at the diagram if it helps, because it is on the inside, it's on the medial side of the thigh. If you kind of poke up to the bottom of the pelvis, you'll find there's a tiny round little bony prominence that you need to find. Can you kind of find that? Yeah? Right, that is where your hamstrings insert. And giggling aside, if you pretend that is a laser beam and that bony prominence is firing a laser directly down, to stretch your hamstrings properly, you need to fire that laser at the wall behind you, okay? So you're turning down like that, and you're going forward, and you're firing those laser beams straight back, okay? Don't laugh, because otherwise, if I don't do that, and I just stretch down and touch the floor like that, I've contracted my hamstrings, and I haven't stretched them at all. So you're not going to feel a proper stretch. Hamstring stretch is not about your ability to touch the floor. It's about knowing where your origin is of that hamstring insertion, pushing it back because that's increasing my stretch. Okay, so think about your push and hold on the wobble board. You're sticking your ass back to get into the hamstrings. Okay, hamstring crosses the knee on the insertion down here. So we want to push it right back and gently just press the knee back into it. And I've got a hamstring stretch there and I'm not touching the floor. I can touch the floor with it. But if I just do that, I am not stretching. So find your hamstring insertion. Think about it as pointing a laser down. Using your abs, push back and get into that stretch. Really push your arse back. Can you feel that in your hamstrings? Yeah? Surprising? Okay. And what you can do is if you've got a chair and something in front of you or a kitchen side at home, if you press, yeah. So if you want to go behind and press. Yeah. So if you want to use go behind your chair, if you have a chair and just press onto that. Yep. There you go. Can you feel that more? So we're pressing that bottom back. Okay, use your core, grip in with your core to come back out of it and come forward. Okay, so now the difficult question from there. If your hip flexors are tight and you've gone into duck butt, okay, what has happened to the insertion point of my hamstrings? Has it moved? Yeah. Exactly. So because the insertion point, origin point of the hamstrings is, if you like, on the base underneath of my pelvis, if my hip flexors are tight and I'm in duck butt, it's already pointing that way. Okay, so when you sometimes think your hamstrings might be tight, it might just be what your hip flexors are doing to your pelvis, because the origin point of the hamstrings is already in stretch, pointing back that way, which is going to make you feel like you've got tight hamstrings, but really they're just overstretched and they're lengthened and they're weak, okay, because those hip flexors are tight. So that's why I wanted you to really kind of feel and learn where those two origin points of the muscle are, because it starts allowing you to assess what is going on with your pelvis and get into your stretching yourself and know, you know, not waste your time stretching your hamstrings when actually what you need to stretch are your hip flexors. Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay, cool. So, however, if our hamstrings are tight, okay, bear in mind that if we're shortening and we're not fully going into knee flexion and coming forward, so if they're tight from sitting in this position because the hamstring inserts there, okay, what are we going to feel with our lower back? So if that's tightening, it's going to pull my pelvis into a posterior tilt. It's going to do the opposite to the hip flexors. So it's going to pull me forward like that, which is still going to cause me lots of niggles down in that SI joint because it's overstretching me through there and it's going to become really sore and niggly. So if you think it's your hamstrings, go into that stretch, push your butt out and lengthen them off. Okay, we can sit down for a bit now.
Any questions with that so far?
So our third bit are our quads. Okay, quad is 4, so we've got 4 of them. We've got a rectus femoris, which is our big bulky one down the front. We've got our VM, our vastus medialis, which is on the medial on the inside of the leg, and we've got vastus lateralis on the outside because it's the lateral aspect, and we've got intermedius, which runs underneath the main quadricep muscle. Just going to look at 2 of those. So I'm going to look at the big one, which is rectus femoris, which is a hip flexor because it attaches to the top of the iliac crest, top of the hip joint, and it assists us in lifting our leg up. Opposing muscle group to the quad, our main quad is, what's the opposite? Hamstring. Brilliant. Okay, and little test on the stretch is, again, if those quads are tight, so it's tightening through here, what's it going to do to our pelvis? Tilt it, yeah. So we need to look at the stretch and stretch that, which is engage your core, because we're always looking at our core stability, onto one leg. And if your quad isn't tight, your heel will touch your bum. It will be in line with the other leg, and heel will go straight to bottom. Okay? If we want to increase the stretch a little bit, we can just stick 2 fingers on the top of the hip bone, cheat it, and just pull down a little bit. Okay? If my quads are tight on that, I'll maybe lean forward to compensate for it, or my heel will be back here. So just have a little stand up and just play with that quad stretch. So one leg, engage your core to help balance. Needless. Okay, nice and tall. Okay, it's everybody's heel touching their bum. Yeah? Without a lean forward. And just lean back into it a little bit. Does that increase the stretch if you lean back? Yeah? Yeah. Okay. Good. All right, and swap legs. Use your abs to support the stretch. Okay. Good, just try and keep it in line with the other side. Okay, yeah, okay. All right, and let go. Okay, so don't forget to stretch your quads because they will get tight from riding. The second quad that I want to look at is your vastus medialis. I want to look at that medial inside quad. Can anyone tell me why that one's important? Why do I want to look at that one? Any ideas? So I want to look at that medial quad that runs on the inside of the leg. Okay, patella tracking. When we're on the equisizer, we want to, or when we're riding, we come in slightly. Okay, so we're not in a neutral patella tracking line. We're bending in and we're switching off our VM, which is why some of us there's some difficulty on the balance because we're not supporting the knee with our medial quad. So it's really important to prevent injury and get that patella tracking right long term to build up that strength in that medial quad and make sure we're balanced and we're not over dominant on the outside. Any ideas how we might strengthen up that VM and have a look? So we're going to try this. I'll get a couple of people to try it in a minute. Single leg squat is one of the best ways. You might want to try it in a door frame at home for a bit of extra balance. So you set your core, you come down, my kneecap's in line, it's in line, she says, it's in line, but I'm coming down into my squat and I'm holding that. And as I come up, I'm tracking that kneecap, I'm bringing it back in really nicely to standing. Okay, so you just do a couple of reps through, hold it, pause it, grip in with that kneecap and track it back up. And if you use the door frame for support, it'll give you extra balance. Who wants to have a quick go at that? 2 people.
Quick,
go on. 1 to 2, that's fine. Okay, so just turn around, face the crowd. Line up your foot on the mat so everything's nicely in line. Engage your core, pull your abdominals in so they're nice and strong. And I want you to think about slowly sticking your butt out, coming down. Keep that leg stable. Keep that leg stable. Okay, see how that instability is wobbling there. So we want to train that to fire with the glutes to keep that tracking and come up. Use your abs to come up.
Well, that shouldn't move so much.
Nope, that should be perfectly smooth. Yeah, so have a look. So we're there. So it wants to bend in because it's not strong enough in your glutes or that VM to support that coming back up. And that is really important because riding is going to predispose you to switching off that VM. And if we go to run or anything, if every step we take, we haven't got that stability on a single leg, we're going to be doing this all the time. So if you get that pain going up your ITB, typical running injury, it's normally because we're not strong enough in one of our glutes and we haven't got that strength through the VM to support the kneecap.
And will you show, obviously, later on the exercises?
Yeah, so I do more of the exercises when we get onto the Jockey Fitness Club test work. So the fourth muscle group I want to cover, one of my favourite muscle groups, are the glutes. So we have maximus, medius and minimus, and I want you to think of the glutes as a massive fan-shaped muscle. This isn't a one-dimensional muscle. This is like my 3D muscle. It maintains hip joint extension, it does abduction, it controls the movement away from the hip or outward movement, and it controls a degree of rotation as well. So it needs to be trained and stretched in those 3 ranges because it is a fan. I want to focus on, well, Maximus because it is your powerhouse. So when you're looking at developing your strength exercises, we'll do a lot of work that focuses on your glute max, but also I want you to focus on the medius glute med, because it's the one that controls the movement away from the body. So when we were looking at that patella tracking, you need that strength in your glute med to stabilise the single leg and come up. So if I run and I drop inwards, it's my lack of strength being able to stabilise this outwards from my glute med that causes me to fall in. So we're looking at stabilising all of the glutes together so they work together and they function. Why would your glute muscles become weak? Any ideas? So when a muscle's weak, it's normally because it's lengthened, because that's at its weakest point. Muscles are strong when all those fibres overlap and they go into a contraction. That's a stronger action than when we come into the lengthening when they're at their weakest point. If we're riding on the exercise, I might actually get someone to hop on. Can I get someone to hop on? Doesn't matter who it is. Go on. Yeah. Okay, and yeah, just grab the reins, go into your sort of riding position. All right, so we've got the glutes in a lengthened position now. We see really, really nicely the glutes are long. So all the time when we're riding, we might have strengthened them and we might have added extra strength to that stabilisation position, but they're in a longer, weakened position. Okay, hop off. So we're teaching them to sit in a stretched position. Again, if we've got that tightness onto our pelvis and we're sitting in that, the glutes all the time are in a lengthened position. So we need to teach them to get back into some contraction work. So we need to take them when we're training through range, whether we're squatting and we're coming up, we stick in some jumps, but I'll work through this when we get to the exercises. Why do you need a functional butt? Why am I going to say that is so important? Because it's your powerhouse. What does it prevent? Hey?
Balances everything.
Yeah, it balances everything. Prevents injury, balances out your posterior chain. So all of that dominance we have, if you like, on the front of our body from riding, whether it's quads and it's hip flexors, having a strong backside helps equal out the back and it balances out the strain that's going to go onto your back. I'll go on to the exercises for the glutes later on in a few slides that finish at the end. And the last bit of the anatomy lesson for today are your abdominal muscles. Key to everything. Abdominals are key to your riding, they're key to your strength training, they're key to your running. You know, we've got 3 main layers. Does anyone know the deepest layer of our abdominal tissue? No, okay, we've got our transverse abdominis, which is the deep one underneath. And that stabilises our lumbar spine, and it's also responsible for it expiring, so it forces expiration. Really important because in stabilising the lumbar spine, it protects our spine. So if you like, having that stability there allows that functional protection. You know, before we even go for a movement, those lower abdominals have kicked in to stabilise our lower spine and prevent injury. Second set of abdominal muscles, which you can see on the diagram on the cut through, are the oblique muscles. We've got internal and external obliques, and they're the ones that help us with side flexion. So if I move over here and I pull back, it's my obliques that are pulling me back. So with that video we saw of Kennedy at the beginning, that twist he did, good oblique function there is going to help pull you back into position without damaging your back. It will protect your back. And then the third set, which most boys are interested in, is our rectus abdominis. It's our six-pack muscles, which technically, inverted commas, are the slightly more superficial muscles, but that helps on lumbar spine flexion. So it is getting us pulling and contracting to take us into that position, and then it lengthens to take us into that. So spinal takes us into the spinal lumbar flexion. And if they're tight and we're over like this all the time, again, it's pulling our pelvis into a backward tilt. So something you might want to think about is actually stretching out your abdominals as well. So in terms of looking at core work, I would always build the deep abdominals, the transverse abdominal muscles first, because they're our spinal stabilisers, and that's what we want to give postural stability and prevent injury. So we are going to have just another kind of stand up, because I want you to feel that core activation. I want you to learn how to activate your core properly. So we just need to stand up again. So because our deep abdominal muscles help us with expiration and breathing out, to activate them, I breathe in. And as I breathe in, I feel this tension in my lower abdominals there. Can everyone breathe in and feel that tension? As you breathe out, I want you to keep hold of that tension. And can we feel a brace through there? Yeah? Has everyone got that? No? Let's try it one more time. Let's try it one more time. So we're going to breathe in, and as we breathe in, sucking in the tummy so you feel a deep engagement there. And as we breathe out, we're going to keep hold of it, but just breathe out the air. Everyone got hold of that? Yeah? That is solid. It should be solid. That's the position when we do any exercises, if we're lunging, keep that engagement, because that is going to keep my pelvis, there's no hip drop there, from dropping. Okay? When I squat, I'm using that pelvic engagement to support my hip bones. Okay? When I'm planking, same engagement there. Okay? So any exercise you do, I want you to remember that little trick, because that's engaging your core properly. Okay. Oh, running through. You can sit down. We've got a bit of sitting time. So the different types of muscular contraction when we're training. The two main ones are concentric and eccentric. The muscle shortening to the muscle lengthening. When we have a concentric, the shortening muscle contraction, our fibres overlap. So as I do a bicep curl and shorten my bicep, my muscle fibres line up one on top of each other and they start to overlap. As I go into the eccentric, I'm pulling them apart, I'm lengthening them. So the end of that range point there is where my muscles are, if you like, at the weakest. They've got the least power in them. So if we apply that to when we train, because the muscles have the least force position and they're, if you like, their weakest, if I slowly do my eccentric contraction, I actually get more strength gain on the downward than I do on the upward. So if you want to maximise your strength, work some eccentric contractions. So if I'm doing, simply like a bicep curl, I slowly keep my core in and I just lower to get double up the strength gains. Okay. The next one down there is isometric, which is in red, because this is what we see a lot of the demands on the horse are going to be need and require an isometric contraction, and the jockey test specifically covers an isometric movement. So it's a static contraction. Isometric means that your muscle, the joint angle, doesn't change on the muscle, and the length of the muscle doesn't change either. So if I'm pushing against that wall there, it's a static contraction. I'm generating forces from the muscle that I'm using, and actually that recruits more muscle fibres. So it's a really good way, actually, when you're coming back from injury, to get all of your muscles firing again, because that isometric contraction requires a neuromuscular drive to recruit more fibres. So it's well worth including it in strength training as well. You get a lot of strength gain from it. And the third one I've put in there are plyometrics. I like plyometrics a lot. You've got to be stable to do them, and certainly not just coming back from an injury phase, because you've got your lengthening, your shortening of the muscle, you've got your static contraction, but we need to move and we need to produce those strength gains under a movement pattern. So if I'm looking at progressing my squat, I squat down, but that's my plyometric. We're looking at jumps and bounds, and we're looking at keeping stability and core into that functional dynamic movement pattern as well. And that becomes really important later on in your training as well, because you don't get a muscle mass gain from it either, but it will teach you to respond, it will teach you to balance, and it will cause an increase in strength as well. So our jockey fitness test. What does the test target? It targets that static contraction, and it does target a specific muscle groups to your racing. It increases the ability to maintain your position within the set range, and it's starting to look at improving fatigue resistance within an aerodynamic position. So do you know what? It's an extremely good place to start with your exercises, that if you can hold the time they're requiring, you are strong in the position that you need to ride. However, would training the opposing muscle groups, so to the jockey test, actually provides you with greater stability? Yeah. So actually we need to look beyond that test and strengthen the opposite muscle groups to what that test requires us. The second part of it is it's going to look at your aerobic fitness. It's providing you with a rating, if you like, of necessary cardiorespiratory fitness to race, but do you reckon that if we improved that beyond the test, we'd be able to offset fatigue during racing further? Yeah. So definitely don't stop at just the fitness for the test. Look at building more efficiency beyond that. So you know what, to really, achieve and get those performance benefits, all the time we need to challenge the body, we need to develop it, and we need to make it even more bulletproof. So you recover from injury, you optimise your performance, and you become fatigue resistant. So let's start on the exercises. Firstly, we have the lower body exercise. So I'm going to work around people during this. So anybody volunteer now? I need my first exercise demonstrator. Yeah. Perfect. Come on. Right, I am going to get you to do 20 reps, and then I'm just going to give you this for 15 seconds tall. Or so. Okay, so can you do 20 reps of a squat for me? I'm going to have a little look. Okay, I'm just going to correct it first of all. I'm going to get your legs a little bit wider. If your legs are too close and you come down to squat, we can't literally get the hips through the gap. So we need to take them wider. And always think about it dropping your hips through that gap, and that gives you the range to be able to get into. So drop down through the gap, even a little bit wider. Take them here, even wider. Yep. Perfect. Okay, and come back up. Did you engage your core first?
Probably not.
No. Okay, so let's do the inspiration and expire out, grip in. Perfect. Now go down. Good, and up. Yeah, keep gripping that core. Good. I'm just going to get you to do 10 and then and the rate.
Knees always kicking doing it, I don't know.
Okay. And then on the next one, and then go down and just hold that. Yeah, yeah, that's fine. And hold it. 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. I'm going to change that slightly, and this time I'd like you to do it as an overhead. So we're just going to hold that on an overhead press and come up, and then I want you to press in front, pull in, and go up. Okay, so we're going in front and up. So try that. Squeeze the shoulder blades, yeah. Okay, wait. No. Squeeze it in, squeeze through the back of the shoulder blades. Now come up and press above your head. Okay, good. Down, press out, squeeze those shoulder blades back. Good, and press up. And press up and breathe. And down. Is that harder?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and put the weight down. Brilliant. Okay. So That was great, thank you. So what I'm trying to show basically with the first exercise is that yes, you need to do that static 2-minute hold and you need to build up to that because it will give you a huge amount of isometric strength that is relevant to riding, and if you're trying to pass the test, you have to do it because you need to pass the test. But there are other ways that we can challenge it and we can develop our strength. And I'm a big fan, if you can get our upper body into something, we build upper body strength with lower body strength, we've got more bang for our buck. We're on time management. It's more efficient. And I think you found there it's more challenging in the glutes because we've got a gravitational pull going forward. So that challenges our glutes. We've got to stabilise more back here because we've got the weight in front of us. We squeeze back, we press above our head, and we've got an upper body challenge in there as well. So do you know what? Mix the exercises around. So with those glute exercises, take a weight to them. You might end up doing a back squat with an Olympic bar. Okay, that's absolutely fine. But you know, look at increasing endurance reps first of all, and look about what you can do to challenge the gravity. So pushing away is going to make you stabilise here even more. The other exercise I really like is, let me get somebody else up to try this one. Go on. Is we've got lots of squat variations, so actually this is a bit of the short straw because this is, let me come over here, ballet. I need you to go, lovely, I need you to go into a plie, so we're turning the feet out even wider because the hips won't drop through that gap. And he wore jeans. Okay, I'm going to get you to come down. Perfect. Okay, this is going to kick into the adductors, so we shorten the adductors when we ride. So coming down through that gap and sitting back, does that get another bit of your glutes? Yeah. Yeah. Really, really does. So sit back into your heels a little bit. Good. Squeeze the butt, contract the glutes, engage it even more. Yeah. When you squeeze, yeah. So we're squeezing our glutes when we do these exercises, and slowly come up. And again, engage that core. So, and go down, and sit, weight through the heels. Good, squeeze the butt, and come up. So you can look at variations on these exercises that you can do, work up to duration in terms of the hold. So we can look at doing 5-second hold, you sit down, 10-second hold, 20-second hold, or we can go for reps on the number of exercises we do. And compared with a normal squat position, how horrible did that feel? Painful. Yeah. Yeah. So we've got a couple of exercises there on our squat variation that we can build in to give ourselves more balance and more stability. And always remember with those squat type exercises and the lunges, squeeze your glutes. You need that contraction there. All right, second lower body one is our push and hold. So this targets into our hamstrings a little bit more because what I was saying about those insertion points was that push forward in our butt and that stabilisation starts to kick through into the hamstrings. So that's looking at my hamstring strength. I've got a static hold there on the test, but where would I like to take that to in training? Again, a bit ambitious with 5 kilos on there. Disc plate or ball, but you know, if you've got a training partner, I'd be looking at coming into that, and can I throw that? Yeah. And throwing it back, be nice, and throw it back, because as I start to bend down, go this side a little bit, there, I'm having to stabilise through the glute, and the hamstrings again, come this side, and out, and I've got a bit of oblique stabilisation because I've come over onto that rotation. So start playing around on doing this with ball throws because we're engaging the upper body, we're getting abdominals to fire more, but we're still in that position that we need for the test and for our riding as well. And if you really want to show off, go wrong, go on to double, 2, back down, and 3. And I'm finding that hard to stabilise. Okay, so you can look at what you do on coming to the single leg. Yes.
And also, will I be right in saying you're more rotating now rather than the jockey test where you're just going up and down?
Exactly.
You're using your hips.
We're
balance.
using the hips, the balance, and you need that balance because you know if that horse goes over for a jump and you're coming forward, you need that reactionary balance. So let's build in those weighted throws into that wobble board work. It's a really nice way to do it. And I said, you can take that into a single leg balance that you're there, and it's that single leg deadlift is essentially, I'm having to work really hard to control that there and coming up. Actually, somebody will want to try that one. Have a go, because it will show you.
No, go on.
Go.
Yeah, go on, Dawn.
Go on, go on. Okay.
Show these youngers one up.
Go on. Right, the left leg on the board. So get your balance first of all, just standing tall. Tell you what, on this one. They're hard, I know. So just come up, and you engage. You pull in your core. Come on, single leg, and then grip in, and you're looking just to stabilise. Grip into your butt. Squeeze your butt. Yeah, but that is how difficult that is. This is not an easy exercise, so it's worth. Yeah, it's not, and you can see how much stabilisation having that stronger will get you on that board. If you don't have these at home, you can double over a pillow, sort of fold a pillow in half, and it's not as good as the boards, but it's certainly a good start at home. As you can double up your pillow. Just don't steal your roommates, because that's a bit mean if you're standing on their pillows. So there really are progressions. We've got the single leg on there. I really like the ball throw for the balance and the rotation. So upper body exercises. Number 3 is our press up and hold. And if it makes you feel better, I went through all these exercises to see if I could do them and how hard they were, and I hated this one. This one I think was absolutely brutal, actually. So we've got a 90-degree arm hold, and you've got to hold it for 1:30. It's targeting your chest muscles, your triceps, your abdominals, your back, and you really need to engage your core on it to support that lumbar spine, and also contract your glutes, and remember to breathe. If you haven't done your test yet, again, you need to be working that up in training to that 1:30, that 90-second duration. What's the practical way to do that? Start with 15-second holds, start with 10-second holds. Go 10 to 15 seconds of a hold, take 10 to 15 seconds off, and repeat it again. Okay, so you're building up that full 90-second duration. And then again, when you've got to a minute of it, take 30 seconds off and maybe repeat it for another minute. If you pass the test and you've done the test, actually it's a really great exercise for building strength. I would definitely try and keep that duration in there. Other ways that I'd build it with for press ups through range, straight press up. So as you're coming down, remember what I said about eccentric contractions. So slowly on the lowering will give you a better strength gain, and faster on the push up. Slowly on the lower and fast on the push up. You can do them to target different areas of the chest. You can look at an incline, decline press up. Has anyone done incline or decline? Yep. Okay, great. So mix in a press up set where you do one on a neutral plane, and then you do your incline onto a bench like that. Decline is feet on the bench, and you're doing that exercise onto the floor. I've said aim to build up sort of 40 reps as 3 sets within some kind of circuit. You're always looking to build up your endurance, because it's that same endurance that you want while you're riding. Again, other variations that I quite like. Anyone done gym ball walkouts before? So we hold up press up position through our core. We can walk it out, holding our core nice and strong, get to the end, so I should be at the end on that, on range. And essentially we've got a decline press up coming through there, and we can put in some other core work that challenges our balance and still challenges that press up strength there as well. So, does anyone want to go at the walkout? Go on, somebody have a go.
Go on, I dare.
Go on.
It's when you have one knee on it and you have to get balance and hold it.
Yeah.
The opposite arm and leg out.
To stand
All
up
of
eventually.
those. Yeah, it's a bit difficult. It needs a bit more air in it. Okay, recruit your abdominal. There we go. Okay, so I want to watch that dip through the lumbar. Yep, so that little dip there needs more core stability. So you need to push your abs, not your bum up, push your abs into it. So we're losing, can we see that little dip? I would like that to be flatter. So we need to build up that abdominal strength. Yeah?
Okay.
Okay, so off you go, have a go. 1. Good. And walk it back in. Really pull in with those lower abs. Okay, and that little bit of rotation. Come on, do you find it? Come on. So we've got a little bit of rotation there. So that was good, because that is really, really hard. That was really good. So the gym ball is really, really good for targeting the stability and working the press-ups, because it forces you to stabilise your pelvis, to maintain position basically on the ball. So just looking at that again, if I come over, all of that, I'm picking up my hands, so I want more of a pick up, because that means I've got to keep that stability in a straight line. Okay, as I'm there shouldn't be any rotation going through, it's just all strong. And then again, no rotation, it's all in one line. And out, and in, and I'm using my abdominals to push that back and control the walk back. So it's pick it up, pick it up, pick it up, pick it up, and I'm not running anyone over, going backwards to there.
And is that keeping your back kind of more straight than dipping?
It should have been in
more,
the plank,
yeah.
yeah. Don't want to see any dip into that lower back. So use the gym ball as well to, you know, target some strength onto those press up type exercises. And then we've got an elastic band push. Okay, again, it's an exercise that's still worth keeping in and doing it. What I kind of think is we've got, with the press ups, a lot of tightening going on the chest muscles. Again, with coming forward, we're very forward through here, and the position of my shoulder blade is this angle, when actually the set of my shoulder blade needs to be open and back. And again, if we're adding riding into that, we're forward here. We're always bringing that rotator cuff, if you like, into a forward position. So actually my supporting exercises there are going to be a pec stretch, which is, can I look? If I use an edge here and press against that, I'm opening out through there. I've stuck it into a lunge again because I want some functional stability on the glutes. And I need to put that at different angles because the pec is a massive fan-shaped muscle around here. So I'm going to get a stretch at that angle, stretch at that angle, stretch at that angle, and leaning forward into it. Okay, and you want to look to hold that for sort of 20 to 30 seconds. So I want to open up and stretch out the chest. So I can then, because if my pecs are tight, that shoulder blade is, that ball and socket joint is going to be pulled forward anyway, so it's not going to matter what strength exercises I do. If I do it from that position, it's not going to do what it needs to do. So stretch it out, functionally assess your shoulder by looking at it in the mirror. It needs to be sitting in line there, and stretch it. Get it stretched, get stretches through there. And then I'd like to work some external rotation. So I'd like to build up the back of the rotator cuff to keep that muscle on the back of the ball and socket joint strong. So imagine, I'm going to borrow, that is my cable or TheraBand stretch cord, and keeping a towel between, I use a wobble board, between there, squished in there, I'm going to externally rotate. So I'm doing that. And that works a tiny muscle in there that is going to keep that shoulder nicely in position. So the external rotation with the TheraBand would be something I'd definitely put in to support those exercises. And actually I quite like chin-ups, wide arm grip chin-ups. If you can find a chin-up bar and do that. So you're pulling back here because we're working the back of the lats in the opposite to what we normally do with them. And also we get to use our abs again and our core. Chin-ups are a brilliant bodyweight exercise, and they'll give you so much upper body strength and so much core strength as well. So definitely chin ups, and you want to be aiming, build up to 8 to 15 reps. If you can't manage a rep, get someone to support your body and help push you up into that, and then slowly lower yourself down, because remember, it's that eccentric muscle contraction that's going to have the biggest strength gain. So if you're struggling with it, get someone to help you up, and then try and do the lower down on yourself, and you'll build up to that strength quicker. Okay, on to core strength. Okay, so the leg raise test. If you've, maybe a little controversial here, if you've got to pass the test, you need to build up to that 4-minute metronome leg raise. If I'm in this position on the floor and I'm bringing those legs up, what are my hips in? What were we talking when we were talking about hip flexors? What have I contracted? Well, what muscle have I contracted to bring my legs up? My hip flexors, yeah. So but you're right with what you're saying, yeah. But so I've automatically contracted them to bring them up, and actually by keeping repetitively doing this, I'm building up hip flexor strength, and I'm continually causing a contraction on a muscle that is probably short from riding as well. So if you're struggling to get into that straight leg position on this exercise, and it was something I tried with Nick last week, was that he's like, I just can't get my legs.
There's a few that failed it because they couldn't get a straight leg.
Yeah, into that straight leg position.
Proper straight, we're talking like that. That was a fail.
At that
Probably
90.
Bridgewater could do the right amount, but she got to not even a minute, and your man stopped her and said, because your leg's bent, which is the hamstrings, I've found out since.
Well, hip flexors.
Yeah,
Hip flexors putting the hamstrings into the wrong position, or it could be tight hamstrings. So it comes back to that original bit of functional anatomy, that on that, do you know what, stretch your hip flexors first and see if that makes a difference to you being able to get that straight leg position. If that doesn't work, go into that hamstring stretch of pushing your butt backwards, taking that insertion point that way, and see if that helps you get into doing it. In terms of a strength exercise, if you've already got your license, look, you need strong hip flexors, but your functional stability on your obliques and your planks are going to develop you a vast amount of abdominal strength that I would rather see you doing work on that than doing 4 minutes of leg raises that are going to tighten up your hip flexors even more. So, every so often, definitely throw in some leg raises, but you know what? Maybe don't take them to such an extreme range, just take them within range to there, really dig in your core. So we've got a movement or a contraction is building strength there. So because of that tightness issue with this, if you do the leg raises, make sure you do your hip flexor lunge to stretch it and gain the stability. It's not a straight... I'm going to show you this stretch because I like this one because it takes all the pressure off your spine. And I'm going to get a couple of you to do this, is that it's just, there's no pressure on my back when I'm doing that. So in terms of it's going back to a yoga stretch, it's called a downward dog. And it's a really nice one that it just takes every bit of pressure off my spine. And I just literally sit in that. So once you've stretched off your hip flexors, then just sit into that. And it should ease off your back quite nicely. And if we're wanting to put in some strength work to it, let's look at targeting our glutes, okay? Because by taking that leg back, I'm contracting my glute, squeeze it, hold it, put it back, contraction, put it back, contraction and hold. And I've got that contracted glute there, and I'm holding, stabilising, and back down. So can I get a couple of people just trying that, because it's a nice stretch on your back. Okay, so ideally, stop there because we want the heels down. Okay, just press slightly through your hands. You feel that? We're just going to sit there for a little bit. So it really takes time with this kind of stretching. You want to really settle into the stretch. So just basically you sit there. So TV watching suddenly got a lot more interesting. We can do our stretching in front of the TV. Okay. And now I just want you to basically squeeze your glutes and lift one leg off and back slowly, slowly. Oh, without decapitating anyone. And again. Okay, dig in with your abdominals to support that. Good. And squeeze your glutes. You feel that in your glutes? A little bit?
Yeah.
Yeah. And put that back down. Okay, and come out of it. Okay, does that feel quite nice when you come out of it on your back?
Yeah, it's more for the retracting scups.
All of it, yeah. It's good on everything. I really like that one. And I like making it functional by doing those leg raises. So you can do sort of 10 of those legs out and then hold it. So 10 of the leg raise and then hold it in that contracted position on the glute to build in some strength. And my favourite exercise is always going to be the plank because it is so functional to building that deep abdominal strength. Okay, so because it's so fundamental, actually I want, say, the first half of the room, you don't have to because you've done it if you want to stay seated or you can join in, to just come and just do a plank in front of me on the floor. So remember your breathing first of all, so remembering that inspiration, lock the abs, expire, keep hold of that engagement. So just set up your plank position on the floor.
Move a bit further over if you want, Callum. Yes, that's fine. Dawn, behave.
No fighting or elbowing.
You'll take some knocking over.
Okay, so any dipping of the back, so I just want you to pull in those abdominals. So push up your tummy, push up your tummy. Okay, we need to push that up. Yeah, okay, that's better, but just drop the butt a little bit.
Because this was another strict thing that they were...
Yeah, because
kind
you
of
don't
make-
want that flexion, so I want you to pull this in even more. Just drop through here, but try and now push this up. Up, up, up. There, now hold.
That's it, yeah.
Okay, and squeeze your glutes. Everyone squeezing their butt? Yep. Feel more engagement when you squeeze the glutes? Okay. And relax off out of it. Okay, so we need to get you to relax there and bring that up. Okay, and come out of it. Okay, good. Do you know what? That's pretty good. It's not bad. But if you feel that dip,
Karen.
yeah, you feel that, remember, soften through here and get this in a straight line because you don't want that compression onto those discs. Progressing the plank, you know, I think that 2-minute hold is key. You should all be able to hold a plank, whether you've got your licence, done the test or what. You need to be holding that plank for 2 minutes. But let's put a couple of progressions into it. So we've got our plank here. Make it even harder. Controlled leg raise. I'm about 10 centimetres off the ground and I'm taking it out. And that's also going to be working my glute med because it's taking away from the body. Bring it back in, put it down, bring it up, out, in, down. And I've got separate movements there. It's not just a sort of waggle it around. It's pull it up, out, in, down, up, out, in, and down. And I can do, if you want to do sort of 10 to 12 reps of that on the left side, repeat it on the right side, then repeat it on the left side again, then repeat it on the right side again. That's going to take you up to about 1:45 of total plank time, and then you just grip into it for the rest. So basic requirement, you know, is definitely a plank for 2 minutes, should be basic. And the longer you can build that up for, the more stability you're going to be getting in those abdominals. So, you know, actually, if you can hold it for 4 minutes, you've got some strong abdominals going on there to support your movement pattern. Yeah.
So again, would you say, like the press up, you would do it in short,
Yes.
you know?
So if you're not at that 4 minute duration, I would start with you need to maintain good quality form when you're doing your planking because that's keeping and maintaining your spinal function. It's maintaining you in neutral spine. So I would look at starting on 30 seconds, get the units right, 30 seconds of static hold, 15 seconds rest, 30 seconds again, 15 seconds rest, 30 seconds again, and looking to build it up. Once you've got the 30 seconds, go for a minute, and then have a rest time, and then do another repetition again. So we're looking to build it up. Yeah.
Like I could do the plank, but I wasn't very good at the leg raises. Is it a different muscle, right?
It's much more hip flexors, yeah. So the leg raises is hip flexors. So we can have a look at that actually afterwards and have a look at what's doing that. So we'll come back to that one afterwards, yeah.
You also say here that a trick is smile.
Yeah, because it hurts. It always helps diffuse the pain.
So, did you get that, Callum? I don't want to pick on you, mate, but you won't mind me saying that he's failed a couple of times this test.
Okay.
Right? But then he's been coming to see me. I've been going through the test.
Yeah.
But obviously, it's how you get from that 30% to the 60, 70%.
So in terms of progressing it, what's the maximum duration you can hold your plank for? Or any?
2 minutes.
For 2 minutes. Okay, so I would look at keeping you holding for 2 minutes. Then I'd go through maybe a squat type exercise. So we've got it's an active recovery. Okay, then I would go back to your plank and say, okay, what is the maximum you can hold it for now? Is it 90 seconds? Is it 60 seconds? But do a repeat for it there. And building it up that way, I guarantee you see the following week, if you've done that and you've done your planking in between, you should be aiming for 2 minutes 15.
So squats in between.
Well, it just gives you rest. It
Yeah,
can be a
yeah.
squat, it can be a lunge, it can be the push-pull
Yeah.
on the wobble board, but it's, you know, it's recruiting a bit of abdominal, but it's not loading it to the
Yeah,
extent
uh-huh.
that the plank is. So side plank, so the other half of the room that didn't do the front plank, I'd like to see a side plank. So everyone else that wasn't in the front plank, can you show me a side plank? So remember your breathing first. Inspire, get hold of the abdominals, and expire out. All right, you really need to push up through that. Right hip, left hip, left hip. Really push it up. Okay, we've got a little bit of shaking. How hard are you finding that? Okay, can anyone raise their top leg off the ground and hold it? That's hard. And relax. Okay, brilliant.
Jen, can I just ask?
Yeah.
Is there anything that you can do for that exercise if you've got issues with your shoulders? I can only do that one side because I've got a bit of a rotator issue going on one side. Avoid it.
Yeah. The leg raise part of it, go back to the leg raise part of it, I like that because that's specifically glute med. So if you sit in here, I would definitely do your side leg raises like that because that's still going to give you a glute med stability, because the main function of your medial glute is to take the leg away from the body. So we need to work in this exercise as a stabiliser. So I'd look at it like that. Side plank, not directly if you've got a shoulder injury. I'd look at rehabbing that shoulder, whether it's back of the rotator cuff, and strengthening it to eventually support you in there. We're looking at an exercise with side plank that really kicks it. It's a great exercise for your obliques. So I'd possibly look at sort of in a bit of a squat position, some oblique punches with maybe a disc plate. So I'm coming forward with that and I'm literally punching through, or a dumbbell, so I'm going through and back, because that's rotation. And we're working in the oblique to control that. So we're still getting some oblique work going across.
When you're doing your punches as well, would that be doing the same thing?
Yeah, that would be controlling your obliques anyway, as well, because the obliques are your twisting, they're your sort of turning muscle. So yes, definitely work that in there. So we had, just going on to that side plank there, we had a little bit of wobble going on because we need to build up that oblique strength. So definitely work your side planks in as a progression. When you're stable and you've got sort of a solid 45-second hold on that, then look at challenging it with the leg raise. You can take that leg up, you can take it out a little bit, you can bring it down, take it up, and bring it out. You can then work into the rotational holds. So I'm not leading with my shoulder here. Okay, if you're not strong enough in the obliques, you will want to come forward like this. So just putting one foot in front of the other, control rotation going down, hold it, control rotation going back. And that, I'm really having to work hard in here for that degree of rotation there. So they're the kind of plank variations I'd like to see going in alongside just having that 4-minute static hold of front plank. And I think you can probably see, again, going back to that video at the beginning, when we saw that rotation coming through, how important is that rotation on the side plank to helping us stabilise in that movement pattern. And then at the bottom, I just said sort of a row and your cross oblique sit up, which is what Dawn said. And you can use a weighted ball for that as well. So as we come up, I quite like this, you can punch and throw. You can wait in that position for someone to throw the ball back to you and then lower it back down. You can swap legs and you can go the other side, and that's going to work your obliques into it as well. So yeah, maybe actually definitely, in fact, get a weighted ball and work that, and you can work seated, sort of the Russian twists into that as well. Again, with your abdominal work, look to build up time, the duration that you're doing it for. On some of the exercises, like the Russian twists, I say number of reps, but ultimately you're always looking for your endurance to be time. So time it, time an abdominal circuit. Probably twice a week I will do a pure abdominal circuit, which is working through planks, side planks, press-ups into it, because that's a plank exercise. Another really nice plank exercise is commandos. So you're stuck in that press-up position there, or extended press-up position. You control that downward, control it there, and you press back up. So we're working upper body strength into that as well, but it's all really controlled through my pelvis there. All right, it's gonna get me out of breath now as well. Number 7, so we're looking at aerobic fitness now. And the fitness test is the bleep test, 20 metre shuttle runs, and you've got to reach level 13, which basically equates to 65 seconds at 14 kilometres per hour, or 4.2 minute kilometre pace, 6.6 minute mile pace. Level 13, basically that 65 seconds equates to a 5k run pace of just under 20 minutes. Now, on the test, you've only got to hold that for 65 seconds, building progressively up to it. Now, I think, you know what, if you can actually hold that pace for a full 20 minutes on a 5k, that is a good level of fitness for you to have. And that ultimately is where I'd be looking at aiming that rider fitness for, not just 65 seconds. I'd like to see a 20-minute 5k as a really good standard of fitness.
The actual level 13.
I'd like you to hold for 20 minutes.
20 minutes.
Yep. More than doable. If you've got strong glutes and you're light, the body weight shouldn't be an issue. Do you know what? 20 minutes, certainly 22 minutes.
Is that though
really
still
possible.
going back and forth from the...
Oh no, just on a loop.
Yeah,
just
because
find
they
a
find...
nice, on a treadmill.
So who's
anything.
done the test? So would you say that on that test it was the turning more?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the actual turning was
Having
was
to in and back out, because
yeah.
you lose a second each
So it
time.
probably wouldn't be as hard as
Yeah.
you think, do you know what I mean?
But definitely looking at that 20-minute 5k performance time. So what do you actually really need to build aerobic training? And this is something actually I'd like to cover more in another seminar, because it's not just a slide kind of question. This involves clever nutrition, supporting it with nutrition, and really training specifically to your threshold points. So you want to build, essentially for race fitness, a real solid aerobic base, because that aerobic base teaches your body to utilise and metabolize fat. So ultimately you want to be fat efficient, and you want to be able to break down fat effectively as a fuel. Most of us are too carbohydrate dominant because we eat a lot of carbohydrate in our diet. Therefore, it's our body just chooses to break that down because it's easier to break it down than fat. So doing steady endurance distance runs at conversation pace. Actually, before that, does anybody use a heart rate monitor? Yeah, okay, brilliant. All right, if you want to add something to the Christmas list, heart rate monitor on there, so we start knowing when you're running what specific intensity you're running at. So the basic rule for endurance training is steady work at conversation pace. So I should be able to run around like this, and actually I should still be able to give my talk that I'm giving to you now without needing to break a sentence. So go out with somebody else, chat away, sing to yourself while you run, and if you're not out of breath, you're working into your fat utilisation. You're breaking down your fat as a fuel, and you're building up your metabolic efficiency, which will underpin all of your fitness work. So the better that fat utilisation is, it will give you a better aerobic base to be able to hit higher intensity on your interval work. So you have your steady endurance distance runs that you're building up in terms of time. So if you're at 45 minutes on a steady conversational pace run, look to progress that up to 50 minutes, 60 minutes, 75 minutes, whatever is within your sort of stable functional range as well, and doesn't put you at additional risk of injury, because if your glutes aren't supporting you enough, it's why it's so important. One of the important reasons it's really important to build those glutes up and stabilise your patella as well to be able to support the aerobic conditioning work. So you want really 2 steady runs in a week. This is to get you really, really fit. And then on top of that, I'd include a tempo and an interval run as well. So definitely 4 runs in there a week. And that tempo pace work is like your constant effort, sustained intensity. So I've said it's a constant hard pace without any pace drop, from 5 minutes to 30 minutes. Okay, so it's where you're at. If you can run reasonably hard for 5 minutes, then you're looking to progress that to 7 minutes, to 9 minutes, to 12 minutes, until you've got that really nicely developed 20-minute block of upper end work, that's mirroring that 5K race intensity. And if you get a chance to go and do park run, that's absolutely brilliant for doing this kind of tempo work, and it gives you something to monitor. It gives you a bit of competition as well, those kind of events. And then we've got interval, which is one level up from tempo. So your tempo pace, actually, intensity, is when you can say a sentence, but like I said, you really wish that person next to you would stop talking to you, because you really don't want to keep talking, and it's like spit the sentence out as quickly as you can and then just try and get the breathing rhythm back. So that's your tempo work. The interval work is more kind of like splutter and seriously don't speak to me, okay? And that interval work is much shorter duration. It's upper end lactate tolerance and lactate production work. So it's much more probably what you're feeling on the horse when you're racing flat out. It's taking your breath away. You're having to control it. You're having to work hard to sit on top of that pace and maintain that pace. So maximal 30-second to 3-minute efforts. And start off with 30 seconds flat out, take a long recovery, a minute recovery on that, and then repeat another 30 seconds flat out. So you're pushing your lactate up, you're teaching your body to be able to tolerate it and to produce it as well and get rid of it in one go. So we're working upper end efficiency with that. And you'll find the more of them you do, once you've got used to doing a lot of 30 seconds hard flat out to a good 1-minute recovery, you'll be able to build that up to minutes flat out to maybe a 1 to 2 minute recovery. And then when you get to the 3-minute efforts, you definitely want a 3-minute and equal recovery in there. So the important thing with lactate work is the recovery as well. If you don't have adequate recovery, you won't be able to hit the speed and that lactate production you need for an adaptation on the next effort. So make sure your recovery is long enough to really get your breath back and clear the lactate out. It's like you ride the horse up the gallop flat out, but then you trot it off gently back down, and it's probably taken you twice as long to get, or 3 times as long to get back down the gallop as it has up the gallop. Okay, so it's the same thing for you guys. I really like hill training for the interval work because it increases your leg strength massively, because you've got to take your body weight up a gradient. And there's lots of them around here. So my favourite hill is Fisher's Hill up on the Lambourne Gallop. So I've quite often been sitting there on a Sunday afternoon going up and down. And it's a K from top to bottom. So we can do some really nice hill run-ups. So you can do a minute running up hard and you just jog slowly back down. Don't go too fast with your recovery because otherwise you're never going to get the whole way up the hill. So you run your minute up, you jog it back down to here. You then run your next minute up, you jog it back to here, up to here, and then finally you get to the top. And it will probably take you about 8 to 10 reps of a minute to get to the top of that hill with run backs. So that's a real nice, 30-minute session in there. And it's a good gradient, it's a great strength session, and you can then play with those minutes. Once you've got the minutes done, extend it to 2-minute hill efforts, extend it to 3-minute hill efforts. But that is a really good interval session. And throwing into that, you might want to put some circuits type work onto the end of it. So we've got a very one-dimensional plane when we run, which is forward. It isn't teaching us to move to the side. So you might want to do those kind of hill efforts and then actually put a challenge in, which is going to build more glute strength as well, and look at doing sort of a 45-second stabilisation to our side. And it's that pause there that's the stabilisation to work into our glute strength as well. You might decide once you've done that, done some efforts, that actually you do some plyometric jumps. I'm stabilising my core and every single one of those jumps that I do. So can I get somebody just to try the kind of side jumps? Who wants to try those? Come on. So you're engaging your core. So remember that inspiration, pull the abs in, expire out, keep hold of them. And you're going onto one leg and you're just jumping, support with your abs and stabilising onto one leg.
Jen, would you do this at the end of the exercise or in between?
Oh, okay. And hold. And keep going. Yeah, keep going. Sit into it and hold. You feel that stabilisation? And yeah, okay. And come back. So we can see there's a stabilisation on the balance. It's surprisingly hard.
Would that be done in between the runs up the hill or
We've
at
got,
the end?
okay, we've got 2 trains of thought with this. Ideally, okay, if we fatigue the muscles on the running, we're not going to have as much strength to stick in to the stabilisation work. So you can use it as a separate circuit exercise and build those kind of jumps to make your circuits into your circuit to make them more aerobic. At the same time, if I'm doing, say, a short, sharp, like 1 minute run, 1 minute up a hill, 1 minute down a hill kind of run set with somebody, if they're strong enough, I'll do that kind of exercise after them to get them moving and firing, and then we might do another kind of running set after that. So it really depends on the individual and also where your time is as well. If we're thinking in terms of time management, fitting everything in, it's we don't always get the perfect exercise scenario. So throwing those side jumps in when you're feeling a bit fatigued, just be aware that you've got to try really hard to control it more, or maybe you do less reps, but you're still working in that glute function. So just kind of the last couple of slides to finish off. The good, the bad and the ugly. Okay, our jockey fitness test is race specific, which is great, and it replicates the position we need and builds endurance in that range. However, training for the test will cause some postural imbalances, as will our everyday riding. It makes us work very much on the anterior compartment of our body, and we need to build and strengthen that posterior chain. And I hope that's something that I've highlighted tonight, that we need to stretch the front and we need to build up our hamstrings and our glutes to support that work and reduce our risk of injury. Fitness training specifically should always look at functional dynamic stability training. So basically dynamic movement patterns where we're stable and where we're not predisposing ourselves to an injury risk. It should address postural imbalances, improve our moving strength, and also then with the aerobic side, we're looking to always improve your efficiency. We want to make you better at utilising fat as a fuel. We want you not to get out of breath as quickly. We want you to have less fatigue. And all of that together, if we work on that, has to improve your race-specific performance. It gives you those 5% gains through strength, through aerobic conditioning, through flexibility. And then I just thought I'd add 2 extra exercises into that. If I was going to choose my favourite exercises to add in, I'd definitely like to see a lunge going in, because we've looked at the balance issues as we come forward. We want it nice and strong. We want the glute recruited. We start in the frontal plane, coming back. There was no pelvic hip drop in there. Check your lunge, check the line of your hips. I'm not dropping like this. I'm not facing like this. I'm nice and straight. My abs help me pull back, keeping that pelvis straight. Nice thing about the lunge is we can take it in different directions. So we can work through the glutes in different directions. So I can take it that way. I can do a clock face. I can come back. I can go backwards through here, so I can work around that face of the clock. We can add rotation into it. So if I'm doing a lunge that way, I can rotate. If I've got somebody there nicely, I can throw a ball, to them. Challenge that glute. That was good because that made me pull over there. And we can then go the other way. We go that way and come back. So we've got a weight challenge as well. And actually we can then also in that, we can do our press, we can do our overhead work. So there's a lot we can do with a lunge, which is why I think it's such a great exercise to put in. So I'd definitely look at involving that in our strength training. And then to finish off, I really like the deadlift. And I know kind of a lot of people can be quite wary of, if I lift a big bar, is it going to make me bulk up? No, it isn't. You don't need to lift heavy weights, but you do need the functional movement pattern that it provides. So a deadlift is absolutely fantastic at getting that hip hinge pattern. It gives us that hip extension, hip flexion, and it lengthens through our hamstrings really nicely, and we have to engage our core to pull it up. So it's getting us a real nice functional hip pattern as we do that exercise. So definitely, if you aren't deadlifting, find somebody that can show you how to do it properly if you don't already know, and start going through it with a lightweight. Build up your endurance so you're getting that stability in your glutes and in your hamstrings and core. And then you can progress that into your single leg deadlift, which is on the single leg, to really target that medial glute stability and hold that patella tracking in place as well. And that's it. So any questions? I've got no questions. Yes?
Do you think the fitness is hard?
Yes, I do. Do you know, before when I found out Nick asked me to do this talk, I sort of looked through it and I thought, do you know what? I think I should really be able to do this test, and I should really appreciate what it is and how hard it is. And I had to train for it. I sort of looked at it, I thought, yeah, I'll be able to do this. And I got through the exercise and I was sitting there with the gym ball in my back against the wall, and slowly I started to swear when I got to about a minute and a quarter, and I thought, yeah, I'm going to need to train for this. There's some bits I'm going to need to do.
What score did you get? You should have it with
by
me
the end
on
of it,
my spreadsheet.
By the end of it, 100% apart from the press up. I still haven't got the press up one.
And what have you got to that? What's the highest, longest?
I still passed. Yeah, but the press up one I found.
That surprises me, which is good actually. It's
Yeah.
Do you think where there's no like rotation exercise, would you look at putting that into the other exercises and just
Definitely. So like on that static lunge, but stepping into lunging, I'd be putting in some rotation. But you've got to have stability through your core first in the forward plane, because if you don't have core stability there and then we start adding in rotation, that's when we're looking at tweaks and back. So get yourself really stable in that forward movement first, and then when you're stable and you're not getting any muscle soreness from that, then start adding in the challenges on the rotation to it. And just remember, when you're doing any exercise, core and glutes, contract them both, because that helps support your back. So my two people at the beginning that said, what was our original question was about the legs. What was our original question? Have I converted you? Yeah, have I converted you on, do our leg muscles affect the position of our hips? Good.
The other thing, what sort of advice would you give? Because obviously, when we had the chat last week and we had you on the exercises yourself, and you obviously thought, geez, this is actually hard to hold that core position. So to hold that core position, is it definitely a load of things that you've got to work on, or is there more one important than the other?
Well, I think we all get, there's a lot of quad strength to holding on that. I think if you pass the test and you've got that strength, you've got the quad strength there to hold. But I'd like to see more glute strength going in, because in being in that position, we are working the glutes into a lengthened range, and I'd like to see more contraction there, because also with the horse, we've got that movement, there is a small contraction going on. So I'd definitely like to see more glute strength going on, and I think having that stability through the glutes is going to give you, is going to offset the strength you require from your quads a little bit as well. So basically get a really functional backside into there as well, strengthening up the hamstrings, because you want to stop that tightness of that hip flexor, that sort of duck butt position. So do you know what? Get them strong so they're not continually lengthened and weak. So definitely building up that posterior chain.
Jen, am I right in thinking that strengthening the legs and the hips are going to help the horse as well, because that's galloping at a speed? It's like running with a rucksack on the back, isn't it?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
If you're tight to the horse's back,
Balance, yeah.
it helps the horse balance, which makes you balance, which helps the horse run better.
Absolutely. Yeah, completely. So it will help your horse run better. And probably the only one I haven't done is, you know, some kind of like bent over row to get the back of those scapular blades really working, because you're forward there doing this, but we're not squeezing back and maintaining that lower sort of rhomboid, pulling in those lower rhomboids to control the back of the shoulder blades. So definitely an exercise that looks at that, which gives you really quite a lot to work on. It is a whole body sport.
Not doing isometric contraction against the wall and retract his
Yeah,
back like that.
absolutely. Yeah. So you can do that, and you can do your range. I mean, if you're looking at that, you can look at a scapular press up. So we get a whole body weight involved. So my hands are underneath my chest, and I'm pushing, rounding off those shoulder blades, and then I'm dropping. My arms aren't moving, so I'm dipping them, and I'm rounding off and pushing up. Can you see that? Yeah. And that is coming from my scapula. Yeah, yeah. Any other questions? No, we good?
No. Okay,
I hope that was helpful.
Well, I hope you'll all agree, because I certainly found that really, really informative. That was informative, yeah? All enjoyed it. Round of applause, I think, for Jen, definitely.